Ladies and gentlemen, the future, I want you to pause for a moment and think about the conversations you have every single day. Not the ones with your friends, not the ones with your boss, but the one that matters most. The conversation you have with yourself. For too long, we've let doubt, fear, and criticism sit at the table of our minds, whispering lies about who we are and what we're capable of. But what if I told you that the words you speak to yourself, yes, the words that echo in your mind every morning, every afternoon, every night, hold the power to transform your life? What if for just 21 days you began to speak to yourself the way you would to someone you deeply love, someone you fiercely believe in? Today, I want to show you how changing that inner dialogue just for 21 days can completely rewrite the story of your life, because your life isn't waiting for someone else to speak over it. It's waiting for you. Have you ever stopped to realize that the words you speak to yourself are more powerful than the circumstances around you, more powerful than the challenges you face, more powerful than the people who doubt you, more powerful than any setback that life throws your way? I want you to hear me clearly today. The conversation you have in your mind matters more than almost anything else. The words you speak to yourself are not just echoes bouncing off the walls of your brain. They are seeds planted into your soul. And those seeds, whether they are words of encouragement or words of criticism, grow into the life you live. Every single day, your mind is talking to you. From the moment you wake up, the first words you hear are your own. What do you say when you look in the mirror? What do you whisper when you think about your goals, your dreams, or the person you want to become? If your self-talk is filled with doubt, I'm not enough, I can't do this, I'll never be able to get past this, then those words shape your perception of reality. They put a lens over your life that colors everything in shades of limitation and fear. And guess what? Your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. If you tell yourself you're defeated, your brain starts acting as though defeat is inevitable. You begin to move through your day with hesitation. You second guess your decisions, and opportunities pass you by because your inner voice has already convinced you that you can't win. But the beauty of self-talk is that it works both ways. If your mind can plant seeds of doubt, it can also plant seeds of faith, of courage, of possibility. If your inner dialogue can crush you, it can also lift you up in ways that no one else in the world can. That's why it's so critical to understand that the words you speak to yourself are not just idle thoughts. They are shaping your reality every single day. When you tell yourself, I am capable, I am worthy, I can overcome this, you are literally reprogramming your brain to see possibilities where before there were only obstacles. You are rewiring your mind to act as though success is not just possible, but inevitable. Think about it. The most successful people in every field, the people who have overcome the impossible, they all have one thing in common. They speak to themselves in ways that fuel their vision. They don't allow the inner critic to take the microphone. They are deliberate about the words they whisper to themselves because they understand that reality is not just what happens to you. It's what you believe about what happens to you. If you change your thoughts, you change your feelings. If you change your feelings, you change your actions. If you change your actions, you change your actions, you change your results. And it all starts with that inner conversation. Now, I know it's not always easy. Sometimes life is hard, and the words that come naturally are words of frustration, disappointment, or anger. You look at your circumstances and you think, this is too much, or I'm too far behind. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to acknowledge pain or struggle, but what I am saying is this: you cannot allow those words to be the ones that define you. You cannot let your mind's first reaction dictate the story of your life. You have to fight for the words you speak over yourself. You have to be intentional about the narrative you are creating in your mind. Because whether you realize it or not, your self-talk is the blueprint for your reality. Here's another thing I want you to understand. Self-talk doesn't just shape your reality internally. It shapes the way the world interacts with you. People respond to your energy, your confidence, your sense of self. When you carry doubt and defeat in your thoughts, it shows up in your actions, in your speech, in your posture, in your decisions. When you carry belief, courage, and positivity in your mind, it also shows up. It radiates outward. And the more you consistently speak to yourself in a way that affirms your worth, your ability, your potential, the more the world begins to respond in kind. Opportunities begin to open. Relationships begin to align. Doors you never thought could open start swinging wide because your reality is changing from the inside out. So let me ask you, what have you been telling yourself lately? Are your words building a foundation for the life you dream of? Or are they silently sabotaging your own progress? Are you planting seeds of possibility, or are you watering seeds of limitation? Because here's the truth. If you continue to speak words of doubt and fear, you will continue to see a life that matches those words. But if you begin to speak words of faith, words of power, words of encouragement over yourself, even when you don't feel like it, your reality will begin to shift. Slowly at first, yes, but it will shift. And when you commit to that conversation for 21 days, when you start intentionally speaking life over yourself every morning, every afternoon, every night, you will not recognize the life that blossoms from the seeds you've planted. Think about the words you have allowed yourself to hear over the years. Some of them came from people who didn't believe in you. Some of them came from circumstances that seemed unfair, cruel, or impossible. And some of them came from the one person who should always be your biggest supporter. You came from the one person who should always, the most critical voice is your own. And the truth is those negative words is your own. And the truth is those negative words, even whispered softly inside your mind, have the power to erode your confidence, to shrink your sense of possibility, to convince you that you are less than what God, the universe, or life itself intended for you. Negative words are like toxins in your system. They are invisible, but they attack your spirit. They weaken your resolve. They make you question your abilities. When you repeat things like, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, or I don't deserve it, your mind begins to accept those statements as fact. You start to see yourself through the lens of limitation. You shrink back from opportunities. You doubt your decisions. You hesitate when action is required. And the most painful part, you often don't even realize it's happening because it's been a daily, constant whisper in your mind. It becomes normal to think small because your inner dialogue has trained you to believe that small is all you are capable of. But here's the truth. Negative words do not just destroy confidence. They destroy potential. They rob you of dreams you were meant to chase. They silence the fire that was burning inside you before the world started speaking doubt over your life. Every I can't and every I'm not is a brick in a wall that separates you from the life you were designed to live. And the scar, yes part, once you allow those negative words to take root, they grow quickly, they multiply, they spread into every area of your life. Your relationships, your work, your health, your sense of purpose. They make you question things that used to bring you joy. They make you forget that you were created for greatness, not for limitation. But here is the good news. Just as negative words destroy confidence, positive words build it. And when I say positive words, I'm not just talking about feel-good cliches. I'm talking about intentional, deliberate, life-giving words that remind you of your worth, your power, and your purpose. Words like, I am capable, I am strong enough to overcome this, I deserve success, I am worthy of love and respect. These words are not just empty statements. They are the foundation upon which confidence is built. They are the bricks that construct a life of courage, resilience, and unshakable faith in yourself. Positive words act like nourishment for your mind and your soul. They are the water and sunlight that allow your self-esteem to grow, your vision to expand, and your faith to flourish. When you consistently speak words of affirmation to yourself, you begin to rewire your thinking. You begin to replace fear with faith, doubt with certainty, hesitation with action. Your brain starts to recognize that you are a person capable of facing challenges, overcoming obstacles, and achieving goals that once seemed impossible. You begin to carry yourself differently. You walk into rooms with more confidence. You make decisions with more clarity. You act with courage because the words you speak over yourself have become your internal truth. Here's something else I want you to understand. Positive self-talk doesn't ignore reality. It doesn't pretend that challenges don't exist or that life is always easy. It simply reminds you that even in the midst of struggle, you are capable of rising above. It reminds you that your past mistakes don't define your future. It reminds you that every setback is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become stronger. And when you make the conscious choice to replace negative words with positive ones, you begin to reclaim control over your life. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start being a creator of possibilities. Let me be real with you for a moment. This is not about denying your emotions or pretending that life is perfect. This is about choosing words that empower you rather than words that enslave you. It's about recognizing that the battle for your confidence is won or lost in your mind. One thought, one statement, one sentence at a time. Every time you speak a positive word to yourself, you are breaking down the walls that negativity has built. You are reclaiming authority over your feelings, your choices, and your future. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You no longer have to fight to believe in yourself. You just do, because your words have trained you to see the truth of your potential. And let me remind you, confidence is not something that comes from others. It's not something that can be given to you by a mentor, a friend, or even a loving family member. Confidence is cultivated from within, and the soil in which it grows is your own self-talk. If you plant seeds of negativity, you get weeds. If you plant seeds of positivity, you harvest strength. If you feed your mind with words that uplift, encourage, and affirm, you begin to move through life with a power that is undeniable. People will notice it. Opportunities will recognize it. Doors that once seemed closed will begin to open because your inner confidence, fueled by the words you speak over yourself, cannot be contained. Too many of us have become our own worst critic. We are quick to judge ourselves, quick to point out every flaw, every mistake, every time we fall short. And while the world may offer criticism, the most damaging words often come from within. That voice in your head, the one that whispers, "You're not good enough, you messed it up." Again, why even try? It's a voice that slowly robs you of your power. It doesn't matter how talented you are, how prepared you are, how much potential you have. If you allow that inner critic to have the microphone, you will never live in the fullness of who you are meant to be. But here's what I want you to understand. The voice that you feed becomes the voice that leads. If you speak to yourself like a critic, you will live like a critic. If you speak to yourself like a champion, you will begin to live like a champion. Champions are not people without fear, without doubt, or without setbacks. They are people who refuse to allow fear, doubt, or failure to define them. Champions speak to themselves in a way that empowers, encourages, and motivates action, even when circumstances are against them. And the first step to that is being intentional about the way you talk to yourself every single day. Think about a coach, a mentor, or someone who believes in you deeply. How do they talk to you? They don't belittle you for failing. They challenge you to rise. They don't call you names. They remind you of your strengths. They remind you of your strengths. They don't focus on your mistakes. They focus on your potential. Now imagine if that same energy, that same encouragement, that same belief came from inside your own mind. Imagine if your own inner voice became your biggest supporter rather than your harshest critic. That is what speaking to yourself like a champion looks like. It's not arrogance. It's not denial. It's not pretending that life is easy. It's belief in your ability to rise no matter what. Every day we are faced with challenges, with moments that tempt us to doubt ourselves. It could be a project at work, a conversation with someone you care about, a dream that seems just out of reach. In those moments, what do you say to yourself? Do you say, I can't handle this. I'm going to fail. I'm not ready. Or do you say, I've been through worse. I have what it takes. I can rise above this. The words you choose in those moments are not just thoughts. They are instructions to your mind. They are the blueprint for how you will respond, how you will move, and ultimately how you will shape your life. Champions choose their words carefully. They speak with intention. They don't allow negativity to dictate the outcome of their day, their decisions, or their dreams. And here's the reality. Speaking to yourself like a champion doesn't mean you ignore reality. It doesn't mean you pretend that life is perfect or that challenges won't come. Champions see the reality. They acknowledge the pain, the struggle, the difficulty, but they refuse to let it define them. They refuse to let it define them. They refuse to allow circumstances to override their belief in themselves. That's why self-talk matters so deeply, because it's in the quiet, private moments of your mind that your life is truly being shaped. The words you speak when no one else is listening will either build you up or tear you down. They will either create confidence or breed doubt. They will either plant seeds of victory or seeds of defeat. One of the most powerful things about speaking to yourself like a champion is that it rewires your mindset over time. At first, it may feel strange, even unnatural, to tell yourself positive, empowering words. Your inner critic may resist. Your doubts may scream louder. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Your brain begins to accept that the words you speak are not just hopeful statements, they are truth. You begin to notice yourself handling challenges with more poise. You begin to take risks you wouldn't have taken before. You begin to trust yourself in ways you never imagined. That is the power of speaking to yourself like a champion. It's not just about confidence, it's about transformation. And here's something I want you to understand. Champions are not born. They are made, often in the quiet, unseen moments of daily discipline. Every time you correct the negative thought, every time you choose to speak life instead of doubt, you are shaping yourself into a person who can handle more, dream bigger, and achieve greater. Your inner dialogue is your coach, your mentor, and your guide. And if you allow it to be negative, it will hold you back. If you allow it to be champion-like, it will propel you forward in ways you cannot yet imagine. So I want you to take a moment and consider this. What would your life look like if your inner voice became your biggest advocate? What would change if you spoke to yourself with the same love, encouragement, and belief that you give to the people you care about? What doors would open? What risk would you take? What dreams would you pursue? If your mind was on your side instead of against you, speaking to yourself like a champion is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice. It is a decision to refuse the lies of the critic and embrace the truth of your potential. And when you make that choice, you are no longer at the mercy of fear, doubt, or limitation. You are moving as a champion moves, with clarity, with courage, and with purpose. I want you to really hear me today. Change does not happen by accident. Transformation does not just fall into your lap. You cannot wait for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, or for someone else to speak life into you. True change begins with the words you choose to say to yourself, see, consistently, over time. That's why I want to talk to you about the power of 21 days. 21 days of intentional self-talk, just 3 weeks of deliberately speaking life over yourself, has the power to rewire your mind, shift your perspective, and begin to create a reality that aligns with your purpose. Why 21 days? Because science and psychology tell us that habits are formed through consistent, repeated action over a period of time. It's not about perfection. It's about practice. It's about showing up every single day, even when you don't feel like it, and choosing to say the words that will lift you up instead of the ones that will tear you down. For 21 days, you have the opportunity to interrupt the patterns of negativity, doubt, and fear that have been running on autopilot in your mind. For 21 days, you can intentionally plant seeds of belief, affirmation, and empowerment that will begin to grow into a new way of thinking, a new way of seeing yourself, and a new way of living. I want you to imagine for a moment that your mind is like a garden. For years, perhaps decades, you've allowed weeds of self-doubt, criticism, and fear to grow unchecked. And just like a garden, if you don't pull the weeds and replace them with nourishing seeds, the weeds will continue to take over. Those negative words that you speak to yourself are like weeds. They spread quickly, choke out growth, and keep you from seeing the potential of what could bloom. But 21 days of intentional self-talk is like planting a new crop. You begin to water it, nurture it, and protect it from the weeds of negativity. Over time, that crop grows strong, it grows tall, and it produces fruit that can sustain and feed every part of your life. The practice is simple, but it is not easy. It requires commitment, it requires discipline, and it requires discipline, and it requires discipline, and it requires discipline. But 21 days, you must become aware of every thought that crosses your mind. Every time a negative word arises, every time your inner critic whispers, you must pause and replace it with a word of life, a statement of belief, a declaration of purpose. For example, if your mind says, I can't do this, you respond with, I am capable, I am strong, and I can overcome this. If your mind says, I'm not good enough, you respond with, I am worthy, I am equipped, and I am enough. It sounds small, almost too simple, but the repetition, the consistency, the intentionality of it is what creates real lasting change. And here's what happens when you commit. After just a few days, you begin to notice subtle shifts. You catch yourself before you fall into the trap of negative self-talk. You pause instead of giving in to doubt. You start to feel a sense of control over your mind, over your thoughts, and over the direction of your day. By the second week, your mindset begins to adjust. You start to see opportunities where before there were only obstacles. You start to approach challenges with a different energy, a different confidence, a different expectation of success. And by the third week, the changes become undeniable. Your mind has been rewired to expect possibility, to seek growth, and to believe in your ability to rise above whatever comes your way. What's so remarkable about 21 days is that it proves to you that you are not a victim of your circumstances. It proves to you that you are not stuck in the patterns of thought that have held you back for so long. It proves to you that your mind, your beliefs, and your inner dialogue are not fixed. They are malleable. They can be shaped, nurtured, and transformed. And the only thing standing between you and that transformation is your willingness to speak words that build you up consistently for 3 weeks straight. Let me also remind you that intentional LE talk is not about ignoring reality or pretending that life is perfect. It is about creating a mental environment where you can see clearly, act boldly, and move with confidence. It is about replacing the automatic negative reactions with deliberate, empowering statements that remind you of your strength, your resilience, and your purpose. It is about training your brain to respond to challenges with solutions, not self-criticism, with courage, not fear, with hope, not despair, with hope, not despair. And when you take those 21 days seriously, when you speak life into yourself with intentionality, you will begin to notice ripple effects throughout your entire life. Your relationships improve because your confidence and positivity radiate outward. Your work improves because your clarity and focus sharpen. Your goals begin to feel more attainable because your belief in yourself begins to outweigh the doubts you've carried for years. That's the power of rewiring your mindset through intentional self-talk. It doesn't just change your thoughts, it changes the way you live. Every single day, The choices you make, the actions you take, and the direction your life moves are influenced by one thing above all else: your inner voice. That quiet, often unnoticed dialogue inside your mind is more powerful than the advice of friends, the guidance of mentors, or the circumstances around you. It is the silent architect of your life, building your reality brick by brick, moment by moment, thought by thought. If your inner voice is negative, doubtful, or critical, it will steer you away from your dreams, push you into hesitation, and keep you living below your potential. But if your inner voice is empowering, encouraging, and life-giving, it will push you to take risks, seize opportunities, and act with courage in ways that will astonish even yourself. Think about it for a moment. Before you act, before you make a decision, before you step forward in faith, you first think about it. And those thoughts, whether spoken aloud or quietly in your mind, shape the way you feel about that action. If you tell yourself, "I can't do this," or "I'm going to fail," your mind begins to look for evidence that confirms those beliefs. Your body tenses, your energy shifts, and hesitation creeps in. Suddenly, the action that seemed possible moments ago now feels impossible. The decision that seems simple now feels overwhelming. And just like that, your inner voice has dictated not only how you think, but how you move, how you respond, and ultimately the results you see in your life. But here's the powerful truth: the opposite is also true. When you speak words of encouragement and affirmation to yourself, when you tell yourself, "I am capable, I am prepared, I can handle this," your brain responds differently. Your heart pumps with courage instead of fear. Your body moves with confidence instead of hesitation. Your mind scans for solutions instead of problems. And in that moment, your actions align with your potential, not your limitations. Your inner voice becomes a compass, guiding you toward the life you are meant to live. It is no exaggeration to say that your inner dialogue can literally make or break your future. Let me be real with you. Life is not waiting for you to feel ready. Opportunities don't wait for you to have perfect confidence. Doors will open, challenges will arise, and decisions must be made. And in every single instance, your inner voice will be the deciding factor. When you face a tough choice, it's your inner voice that whispers, "I can do this," or "I can't." When you encounter obstacles, it's your inner voice that says, "Keep going," or "Give up." When you dream about something bigger than your current reality, it's your inner voice that either encourages wide or to pursue it, or convinces you to stay small. Your actions and decisions are a direct reflection of what your inner voice believes about you. Now, I want you to understand something deeply. This doesn't mean your inner voice has always been right. It doesn't mean that every thought in your head is true or that every fear is valid. Far from it. For too long, we allow negative voices, voices of doubt, fear, criticism, and past failures to take control. We let them dictate our actions and decisions as if they are unchangeable laws of life. And because we accept those voices as truth, we never even attempt the things we are capable of achieving. We hold back, we settle. We choose the safe, small path because our inner voice has convinced us that greatness is out of reach. But here's the beauty of it. Your inner voice is not fixed. It is not permanent. You have the ability to train it, to teach it, and to transform it. When you begin to intentionally speak life, encouragement, and faith over yourself, your inner voice begins to shift. When you begin to remind yourself daily that you are capable, strong, and worthy, your mind starts to respond differently. Your actions start to align with your words. Your decisions begin to reflect courage instead of fear. And slowly but surely, the life you are living begins to reflect the empowered, confident, and intentional inner voice that you have been cultivating. Here's another truth I want you to hear. Every great leader, every successful entrepreneur, every person who has achieved something extraordinary has had to master their inner voice. They all had moments when fear tried to control them, when doubt tried to silence them, when criticism tried to hold them back. But they learned to speak to themselves in ways that fueled action. They learn to respond to fear with courage, to respond to doubt with faith, and to respond to criticism with belief in their potential. Their inner voice became a driving force behind every decision, every bold move, and every step forward. And that is exactly what I want for you. I want you to see that your inner voice is not just background noise. It is the leader of your life. It decides how you act, what you pursue, and how far you go. If you neglect it, if you allow it to speak lies, it will guide you into limitation and mediocrity. But if you choose to speak life to yourself, if you choose to affirm your strength, your purpose, and your ability, it will guide you into growth, opportunity, and destiny. Every choice you make, every step you take, every decision that shapes your future begins with the words you say to yourself today. Your inner voice is more than just thoughts. It is the power behind your actions. It is the invisible force that determines whether you rise or retreat, whether you fight or fold, whether you embrace possibility or shrink back in fear. And the incredible news is that you have control over it. You can feed it negativity, or you can feed it life. You can allow it to dictate your future, or you can train it to guide you toward your dreams. The path you walk, the opportunities you seize, and the life you create are all directly connected to the voice you choose to speak to yourself each and every day. I want you to understand something powerful today. Transformation doesn't happen in a vacuum. Change is not just about thinking differently or acting differently. It's about creating a mindset that allows new possibilities to take root. And two of the most powerful tools for shaping that mindset are gratitude and affirmation. When you intentionally cultivate gratitude and speak affirmations over yourself, you are not just changing your thoughts. You are changing the frequency of your life. You are aligning your mind, your heart, and your spirit with the reality of what is possible, and that alignment amplifies transformation in ways that nothing else can. Gratitude is more than a polite thank you or a fleeting acknowledgement of what's good in your life. Gratitude is a practice of seeing clearly, of recognizing that even in the midst of struggle, there is something to hold on to, something to appreciate, and something that reminds you that life is moving forward. When you practice gratitude, you shift your focus from what is lacking to what is present. You move from scarcity to abundance. You begin to see opportunities instead of obstacles. You begin to recognize strength instead of weakness. And when your mind is aligned with abundance, your actions begin to reflect abundance as well. You start to make decisions, take risks, and pursue goals from a place of possibility rather than fear. Now, combine gratitude with affirmation, and the results are exponential. Affirmations are deliberate, positive statements that remind you of your worth, your capability, and your potential. They are the words you speak to yourself that reinforce belief in your ability to achieve, to grow, and to overcome. While gratitude shifts your perspective on what already exists in your life, affirmation creates a vision for what can exist. When you speak affirmations daily, I am capable, I am strong, I am worthy of success, you are planting seeds in your mind and heart. These seeds grow roots in your subconscious, and over time, they begin to influence your emotions, your choices, and your actions. I want you to think about it like this. Your mind is constantly listening. Every thought you have, every word you speak internally is being recorded, stored, and reinforced. When you fill your mind with complaints, criticism, and self-doubt, that is the story that takes hold. But when you intentionally speak words of gratitude and affirmation, you are rewriting the narrative of your life. You are telling yourself and your subconscious that you are capable, that you are resilient, and that you are destined for growth. You are replacing fear with faith, hesitation with confidence, and limitation with possibility. And here's the key. Gratitude and affirmation work together because they engage both your heart and your mind. Gratitude nurtures humility and recognition of the blessings you already have, which creates emotional openness and receptivity. Affirmation, on the other hand, engages your logic and imagination, reminding you of what you are capable of creating and achieving. Together, they form a dynamic cycle, Gratitude fuels hope, affirmation fuels belief, and belief fuels action. And when action is aligned with belief and hope, transformation is inevitable. I want to give you a simple example of how this works in practice. Every morning before you even get out of bed, take a moment to speak gratitude aloud. Say something like, "Thank you for another day. Thank you for the breath in my lungs. Thank you for the opportunities ahead." Feel the gratitude in your body. Let it settle into your chest, your mind, your soul. Then follow it with affirmations. I am capable. I am strong. I am enough. I can handle whatever comes today. The combination of gratitude and affirmation sets the tone for your day. It primes your mind to notice opportunities instead of obstacles, to approach challenges with resilience instead of fear, and to act from a place of confidence instead of doubt. Over time, this becomes more than a practice. It becomes a mindset, a natural way of living, and the effects don't stop there. When you cultivate gratitude and affirmation consistently, you begin to notice that your relationships improve because you are more patient, more understanding, and more generous with others. You notice that your work improves because your focus sharpens, your energy increases, and your creativity flows. You notice that opportunities start to appear that you may have overlooked before because your mind is now trained to recognize potential rather than problems. You begin to live life in a state of alignment where your inner world, the thoughts, beliefs, and emotions you carry, supports and amplifies your outer reality. Another reason gratitude and affirmation are so transformative is that they counteract the negativity that we are constantly bombarded with. Every day, our minds are exposed to criticism, comparison, fear, and doubt from the news, from social media, from other people, and sometimes from ourselves. Gratitude and affirmation act as armor, as a shield that protects your mind from being overtaken by negativity. They allow you to filter out what is not serving you and focus on what empowers you. They give you control over your mental landscape and in turn control over your actions and choices. Here's the truth I want you to take away. Transformation is amplified when you intentionally feed your mind with life-giving thoughts. Gratitude shows you what is already working in your life, reminding you that you are capable of navigating challenges because you've done it before. Affirmation G. Gives you the courage to reach for what hasn't yet happened, to believe in the unseen, and to act as if the life you desire is already possible. When these two forces combine consistently, your mindset shifts from fear to faith, from scarcity to abundance, from limitation to possibility. I want you to hear me clearly. Transformation is not about the grand gestures. It is not about one massive effort that lasts a day or a week and then disappears. Too many of us fall into the trap of thinking that if we go all in for a moment, if we push ourselves to the extreme once, then everything will change. But that is not how real, lasting change works. Real transformation comes from consistency. It comes from showing up day after day, even when it feels small, even when it feels invisible, even when no one is watching. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Think about the habits you already have in your life. Some of them maybe are small, almost unnoticeable actions you take every day. The way you brush your teeth, the way you check your phone, the way you react to stress. Those tiny actions, repeated daily, compound over time to create outcomes that feel massive. The same principle applies to your mindset, your self-talk, your personal growth. Small daily actions like speaking words of life over yourself, practicing gratitude, affirming your worth seem minor in the moment. They don't feel dramatic. They don't feel urgent. But when you do them consistently, their impact is enormous. Consistency is powerful because it trains your mind, your heart, and your body to expect and respond to growth. When you speak positive words to yourself every single day, your brain begins to create new neural pathways that support confidence, courage, and resilience. When you practice small acts of discipline, getting up early to focus on your goals, dedicating a few minutes each day to reflection, or meditation, choosing intentional thoughts instead of negative ones. You are literally rewiring yourself. You are building a foundation that can support greater challenges, bigger opportunities, and higher levels of success. And here's the beauty: you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to do it all at once. You just need to be consistent. Let me break this down further. Intensity, while it may feel motivating in the moment, is fleeting. We all know the story. Someone starts with a huge burst of energy, a radical plan to change their life overnight, and maybe for a day or a week it works. But then life happens: stress, fatigue, distraction, and the intensity fades, the habits fade, the motivation fades, and just like that, the momentum is lost. But consistency, even at a lower intensity, creates momentum that cannot easily be undone. Small steps repeated daily compound over time, and before you know it, the life you have been dreaming of begins to appear, quietly but powerfully. Here's another thing. Consistency builds confidence. When you show up for yourself day after day, when you choose to speak words of affirmation and encouragement, even when it's hard, you are proving something to yourself. You are proving that you can be trusted. You are proving that your dreams, your goals, and your potential matter enough for you to invest in them consistently. That repeated investment in yourself builds a sense of reliability and trust in your own abilities, and that trust becomes the foundation for bigger risks, bolder decisions, and greater achievements. Consistency also protects you from the deception of perfectionism. Many people fail to act because they are waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, or the perfect mindset. But life rarely hands you perfection on a silver platter. The only way to grow, the only way to change, the only way to transform is to start where you are with what you have and keep showing up. Small daily actions, repeated consistently, overcome the need for perfection. They teach you that progress, not perfection, is the true pathway to transformation. I want you to consider the power of compound effect. Imagine planting a seed in the soil and watering it just a little bit every day. You don't see anything happen immediately. It feels like nothing is changing, but after weeks, the roots have grown deep. The stem has strengthened, and eventually the seed breaks through the soil to reveal new life. That is what consistency does for your mind, your habits, and your life. Small, intentional actions repeated daily create a foundation that, over time, leads to growth so significant that it seems almost miraculous. But the miracle is in the repetition, not in a single moment of intensity. And here's the reality: consistency beats motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel inspired, energized, unstoppable. Other days you feel tired, distracted, or discouraged. If you rely only on motivation to drive change, you will be inconsistent. But when you commit to consistency, when you choose to show up even when you don't feel like it, you create results that are far beyond what fleeting motivation could ever achieve. Consistency becomes your superpower. It ensures that progress doesn't depend on your feelings. It depends on your choices, your discipline, and your commitment to yourself. Think about your self-talk for a moment. You can speak empowering words to yourself for a day or a week, and it may feel good, but unless you consistently do it, your mind will revert to old patterns of doubt, fear, and criticism. But when you make it a daily practice, morning, noon, and night, those words begin to take root. They reshape your perception of yourself. They shape your actions. They influence your decisions. And over time, those consistent words build a mindset that cannot easily be shaken, a mindset that empowers you to move boldly in life, no matter the obstacles. Small, consistent actions create unstoppable momentum. Daily choices compound. Repeated habits transform. Words spoken daily, thoughts nurtured daily, actions taken daily. They all add up to a life completely different from the one you would have if you relied on short bursts of intensity or occasional effort. And that is why consistency is everything. It beats intensity. It builds momentum, it strengthens confidence, and it creates a life of sustained transformation that no single act of temporary effort could ever achieve. I want you to understand something today that is life-changing. You are the author of your own story. Every single day, with every thought, every word, and every choice, you are writing the chapters of your life. The people around you, the circumstances you face, even the opportunities or obstacles that come your way, they do not hold the final pen. You do. And the incredible part is that the words you choose to speak, especially the ones you speak to yourself, determine not only the plot of your story, but the tone, the direction, and the outcome. Too many of us have been living in stories written by others. We've listened to the critics, we've absorbed the doubts, and we've accepted the limitations that others have placed on us. We've allowed the world's judgments to shape how we think about ourselves. And as a result, we've lived lives that fall short of our true potential. But today, I want to remind you, those stories are not permanent. They do not define you. You have the power to pick up the pen, rewrite the narrative, and choose the words that will guide your life toward the greatness you were born to experience. And here's the key. Your inner dialogue is the most important language of all. The words you speak to yourself set the tone for everything else. If you consistently tell yourself, I'm not enough, I can't, or this is impossible, then you are scripting a story of limitation, fear, and frustration. Fear and frustration. You are writing a narrative in which obstacles appear insurmountable, opportunities feel out of reach, and dreams stay just out of grasp. Your words create the lens through which you see your reality, and that lens over time becomes your life. But when you choose to speak empowering words to yourself, when you choose to say, I am capable, I am strong, I can overcome this, you are rewriting the story. You are creating a narrative in which challenges are opportunities for growth. Obstacles are stepping stones, and your potential is limitless. Every thought, every affirmation, every deliberate word becomes a plot point that moves your story forward in a powerful, life-giving direction. You begin to see yourself not as a victim of circumstance, but as a creator of possibility, a hero of your own journey. Think about this. Stories have the power to shape identity. When we listen to the stories we tell ourselves, we begin to believe them. And once we believe them, we act in alignment with them. That's why your self-talk is so critical. If your words are negative, your actions will reflect doubt. If your words are empowering, your actions will reflect courage. If your words are rooted in limitation, your decisions will reinforce smallness. But if your words are rooted in faith, hope, and possibility, your decisions will reflect strength, clarity, and boldness. You are not just reading the story of your life, you are writing it one word at a time with each thought, each affirmation, and each choice. Here's another truth. You have the ability to edit and revise at any moment. No matter what you've said to yourself in the past, no matter what chapters have already been written, you can begin again today. You can pause, take the pen, and choose new words. You can reject the lies that have been holding you back, the doubts that have been holding you back, the doubts that have paralyzed you, the criticisms that have silenced your voice. And as you begin to consistently speak empowering words, your story begins to change. Your mind, your emotions, your actions, they all start to align with the new narrative you are creating. You begin to move through life with intention, purpose, and belief in your own potential. And here's the remarkable part. When you become intentional about the words you speak, the transformation isn't just internal. It shows up in every area of your life. Your relationships become stronger because you are more confident, more authentic, and more grounded. Your career or work expands because you approach challenges with clarity.